Welcome to a mainlydiy.com video. So I'm going to make a tool holder for some wrenches that can be rolled up. And I'm going to start with, this is going to be my inside fabric. This is just a typical fabric. It's got a fun print because the person I'm making for loves electronics and stuff, so that it's nice for him. And on the outside, I'm using a heavyweight denim. And what I've done is I've cut my pieces to 32 by 29. So I've cut my pieces 32 by 29. So I am going to take those two pieces and put them right sides together. And then I am going to pin around the edge all the way around. And I'm going to leave a big gap in one of the edges. It really doesn't matter which one I leave the gap in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and I'm going to sew somewhere probably about 5/8 of an inch. That's kind of a standard sewing thing. Somewhere between 1/4 inch and 5/8 of an inch, just as long as it's consistent all the way around the edge. But I'm going to leave this area between my pins. I'm going to leave that open. And when I sew, I pull the pins out as I go. So you get more use out of less pins when you put them in this way. So I am going to continue pinning that up. And then I'll take it to the sewing machine and stitch that around, leaving that opening. You probably can see I finished sewing around and I've left this gap right here because that's going to be my turning place. But before I try to turn it, I'm going to come around to my corners, and I just sewed off each end, but I'm going to take my scissors and clip diagonally real kind of close to that corner. And I'm going to do that all the way around, and then I am going to turn my piece right side out. Okay, so I'm getting ready to turn that. I'm going to turn that piece inside out, and I'm just going to put my hand in there, grab a piece of cloth and pull it through, and then I'm just going to keep working it around. I'll probably start at one corner, and I am just pulling that through. Okay. So I have my piece turned right side out, and see, here's my opening. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch around the edge, but I'm going to do it from what will be the outside, which is the denim side. And for this piece where it's the seam is open, I am just going to take my pins and pin that right down. And I'm going to stitch relatively close to the edge, probably about 1/8 inch. Doesn't really matter. You want to be close enough that you are getting the edge. It's more important to be consistent than a particular size. So I am going to go ahead and go around that and stitch it all down. Okay, so I am going to fold along the long. This is the long edge, and I've folded up 13 inches, and then I'm going to take it to the iron and give it a good press. Okay, so I've got that folded up. So I want the 13 inches on what's my left-hand side, but on my right-hand side, I want it to be more like 3.5, 4 inches, something like that. Let's see, that's 4 inches. Let's move the marker down here. I'm going to put a pin in as a marker. And then what I'm going to do, because my wrenches are going to be different sizes, so I kind of want it to slant down. So I'm just going to make a kind of a design element, and I am going to fold that down right along there. So I'm going to put some pins in that. And then I'm going to flip it up. I'm going to take this pin out, flip it up, and I'm going to be sewing this, so I'm going to have this cool little triangle. And so I'm going to follow along my seam line right along there, and then right up here where I've got it folded and pinned. And I'll be back in a minute when I have that all sewed. So this is going to make a nice design element where I have that all stitched down. And I'm going to go ahead and fold it where I creased it with my iron. Okay, so in order for our case to be rolled up, it needs a tie of some sort. So I'm just going to use a shoelace here. Maybe this one's longer than I'd wanted, but that will work. So I'm going to put it right part way down my fold, but pretty close to the middle of the case. I'm not being super accurate with that. And I am going to take my machine and do a zigzag over this. So I've done that tight zigzag on there, and then I'm going to come back to where I had folded the crease for the bottom. And I'm going to take my excess rest of my shoelace and kind of get it out of the way. But what I'm going to do is I am going to sew this seam up, and I will sew right over the shoelace. And while I'm at the machine, I'm going to sew down this other end. And do some back stitching here where it meets up there and right there. So on my short end here, I have stitched that up, and I did a little zigzag. You can't really tell, but on right around there I did a little zigzag because I felt like that would make it a little bit more secure. So I did the same thing on up here, and I did straight stitch on this side, but when I started down here, and when I got up to here, I back stitched over this and then went forward. Just wanted to make sure I got that lace in there really good, because that's going to let us tie up our roll. So now we're going to make our little slots. I'm going to go 3 for this first one from the edge. Oops. Try to hold your chalk marker straight up and down so you don't get those crooked lines like that. We're just going to brush them off. And then the next one I'll make 2.5 inches. So that would be right about there. I think I'll make the next one 2.5, and then I'm going to move down to 2 inches. Actually, I make that one 2.25. And then I'll move down to 2 inches. These are just kind of guidelines, and since this is chalk, we can just brush it off when we're done. And then this one I am going to, how much? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh wow, works out just perfect. 2 inches. There we go. So I am going to stitch from the bottom up on each one of these and do either a back stitch or some zigzags there to make sure that that's firmly held. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch that, and then I'll show you what it looks like when we get that done. Okay, I've got all my seams sewed, and I've got this funky little design element on the back side. And I flip it over, and I've kind of brushed out some of the chalk. I'm not going to take the time to do that right now because it will disappear over time. And so what a person would do is they'd put in their tools, the wrenches or what have you. They'd slide them into the slot. This can fold down a little bit. And then you just take it and you just roll it right up with the tools in it. This one is designed to do wrenches, but certainly you can put anything in it that you want. And then you have your little tie here, and you just tie it up with your shoelace. What's nice about the shoelaces is it has these nice finished ends, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you have a little roll for your tool. And there you go, all done.